Hello everybody, I welcome you all to my online class. Today for class 10th, we are going to start chapter number 1 of the supplementary reader book Footprints Without Feet, and the chapter's name is A Triumph of Surgery, written by James Herriot. My dear children, the subject of the story is a pet dog which is spoiled by its owner. The owner indulges her dog so much with food and other comforts that the dog has become overweight and cannot even walk properly. Finally, the dog is taken to a vet doctor who treats that dog in a very different way. So, to know more about this chapter, let's start the line by line explanation of this chapter.
Well, my dear children, today we are going to start a fresh chapter, a new chapter from your supplementary reader book, that is Footprints Without Feet. And the first chapter, that is A Triumph of Surgery. As you can see on your screens, A Triumph of Surgery, written by James Herriot. Before we discuss this chapter, before I start explaining this chapter, let us discuss about the author, James Herriot. Actually, his name was James Alfred White, and he was born on 3rd October 1916 in the United Kingdom. But he was known by his pen name, and that is James Herriot. Actually, he was a British veterinary surgeon as well as writer also. And most of his stories are based on real life stories. And this story, A Triumph of Surgery, is also a story that is based on a real life incident. James Herriot died on 23rd February 1995. So now we'll discuss this chapter, A Triumph of Surgery. First of all, let's have the intro portion. Tricky, a small dog, is pampered and overfed by his rich mistress. He falls seriously ill and his mistress consults a veterinary surgeon. Does he perform an operation? Does the dog recover? So this story is about a small dog and its name is Tricky. And this dog is pampered. Pampered means to take care of, So to take care of in the best possible way. So this dog was pampered and overfed by his rich mistress. And due to this, overeating, what happened? This dog falls seriously ill. And his mistress, she consults a veterinary surgeon. And now in this story, we will see, does the surgeon perform an operation? Does the dog recover? So to find out the answers of these questions, let's start the line by line explanation of this chapter, A Triumph of Surgery. I was really worried about Tricky this time. I had pulled up my car when I saw him in the street with his mistress, and I was shocked at his appearance. He had become hugely fat, like a blotted sausage, with a leg at each corner. His eyes, bloodshot and rheumy, stared straight ahead, and his tongue lolled from his jaws. Now, I in this story is actually the writer himself, James Herriot, and he's saying that I was really worried about Tricky this time. I had pulled up my car, pulled means to stop, when I saw him in the street with his mistress, and I was shocked at his appearance. The writer was on the way. Meanwhile, he saw this dog, and this dog was with his mistress. And seeing this dog, immediately he stopped his car because he was shocked at the appearance of this dog. He had become hugely fat, like a blotted sausage. The dog had become hugely fat, very fat, like a blotted sausage. Blotted sausage means swollen like anything, okay? With a leg at each corner. His eyes bloodshot and rheumy. His eyes were bloodshot, as if some sort of blood is collected in the eyes of that dog. And rheumy means to have a lot of water in the eyes, and it was looking straight, and his tongue lolled means hanging loosely from his jaws. That was the condition, that was the physical condition of the dog. Mrs. Pumphrey hastened to explain. Hasten means in a hurry. And Mrs. Pumphrey, she's in a hurry and she's telling something to the writer who himself is a doctor. He was so listless. Listless means no energy. He here means Tricky, the dog. Now, Mrs. Pumphrey is saying that he was so listless, Mr. Herriot, he seemed to have no energy. I thought he must be suffering from malnutrition. So I have been giving him some little extras between meals to build him up, some malt and cod liver oil, and a bowl of Horlicks at night to make him sleep. Now Mrs. Pumphrey is saying that I found that my dog Tricky was a bit listless. I felt that there was no energy in my dog. So I felt as if my dog was suffering from malnutrition. Malnutrition means physical weakness due to, little food. So she thought maybe, my dog is becoming weak. My dog is not having proper food. So what happened? She started providing extra food in between meals. In between meals means normally we have, 3 meals a day. We have this breakfast, we have this lunch, and we have this dinner. So she started providing food apart of these 3 meals. And what were they? She used to provide some malt. Malt means just like Bonvita, Complan, we use it. Then cod liver oil. What is cod liver oil? A thick yellow oil that contains vitamins A and D, and a bowl of Horlicks at night to make him sleep. Means what was happening, apart of breakfast, lunch and dinner, she was providing extra meal. And what is happening? See, nothing much really. And did you cut down on the sweetest things as I told you? Now the doctor is asking Mrs. Pumphrey that what about the sweet things? I told you not to give sweet things to this dog. Are you giving or not? Now see what that mistress is saying. Oh, I did for a bit, but he seemed to be so weak. Now she is saying that, yeah, initially in the beginning, I stopped giving sweet items to the dog, but when I felt that my dog was becoming so weak, I had to relent. Relent means what? To act in a less severe way towards someone and allow something that you had refused to allow before. Means, in short, relent means to give some relaxation. Okay? in Hindi we call it choot dena. Okay, he does love ice creams. He does love cream cakes and chocolates. So I can't bear to refuse him. Now she's saying that my dog loved, cream cakes and chocolates. So I started giving it to my dog. I looked down again at the little dog. That was the trouble. The very moment the doctor, when he looked down at the dog, he understood what was the problem. What was that trouble? Tricky's only fault was greed. The only problem with the dog was it was a greedy dog. Greedy means lalchi. He had never been known to refuse food. He would tackle a meal at any hour of the day or night. And the problem with the dog was whenever the mistress used to provide food to the dog would eat it immediately. Okay, and that was the biggest problem. Means what is happening? The dog is becoming hugely fat. Okay, and I wondered about all the things Mrs. Pumphrey hadn't mentioned. There were so many other things that Mrs. Pumphrey was doing for the dog, but she did not mention all those things. Are you giving him plenty of exercise? Now the doctor is asking Mrs. Pumphrey, what about exercise? Are you giving plenty of exercise to this dog? Well, he has his little walks with me, as you can see, but Hodgkin the gardener has been down with lumbago, so there has been no ring throwing lately. Mrs. Pumphrey is saying that, oh, we have, this little walks, as you can see, but actually my gardener, whose name is Hodgkin, he is down, he is sick, due to this lumbago. Lumbago means backache. Okay. So what is happening nowadays, proper exercise is, not been provided to this dog. I tried to sound serious. Now the doctor became serious, and in a very serious tone, he said, "Now I really mean this. If you don't cut his food right down and give him more exercise, he is going to be really ill." Now the doctor, in a strict voice, he said to Mrs. Pumphrey, "See, you have to cut down his food, okay, and at the same time give him more exercise. Otherwise, this dog would definitely be very, very or seriously ill. You must harden your heart and keep him on a very strict diet." Doctor also said that you have to be very strict and at the same time keep him on a very strict diet. Mrs. Pumphrey wrung her hands means twisting hands in opposite direction. "Oh, I will, oh, I will, Mr. Harriet. I'm sure you're right, but it is so difficult, so very difficult." She sets off head down along the road as if determined to put the new regime into practice immediately. So, Mr. Harriet, I will definitely do. So, like this, Mrs. Pumphrey, she went from there as if she was ready to follow a new, diet chart for her dog. I watched their progress with growing concern. Tricky was tottering along in his little tweed coat, and the dog Tricky was tottering. Tottering means walking with difficulty. See, that dog was hugely fat that it was even finding it difficult to walk also. Along in his little tweed, tweed means woolen coat. He had a whole wardrobe of these coats for the cold weather and a raincoat for the wet days. He struggled on, drooping in his harness to control in his harness. I thought it wouldn't be long before I heard from Mrs. Pumphrey. Now see what is the condition of this dog. Although this dog is not well, that's a different thing. But Mrs. Pumphrey, she had always pampered this dog. She had always taken extra care of this dog. For this dog, there is a whole wardrobe of these coats. Wardrobes of these means एक अलग से अलमारी है उस कुत्ते के कोट्स के लिए ड्रेस के लिए, for the cold weather and raincoat for the wet days. सर्दियों की मौसम के लिए अलग अलग कोट हैं उस ट्रिकी डॉग के लिए, सर्द बारिश के मौसम में रेन कोट है, नॉर्मली ऐसी चीजें इंसानों के लिए देखी जाती, बट फॉर अ डॉग, so that is something, amazing. He struggled on, drooping in his harness. Drooping means to bend, jhukna. In his harness. Harness means belts used to control or hold in place an animal. Okay, I thought it wouldn't be long before I heard from Pumphrey. So somewhere the doctor was very sure, after seeing the condition of this dog, that very soon Mrs. Pumphrey would call him again. Now see what happened. The expectation call came within a few days. Mrs. Pumphrey was distraught. So within a few days, Mrs. Pumphrey again called the writer, and this time she was very disturbed. Tricky would eat nothing. Now what happened? Tricky stopped eating anything, refused even his favorite dishes, and besides he had bouts of vomiting. And what is happening? Even Tricky refused to eat his favorite dishes, and at the same time he is having this repeated vomiting. Okay, bouts of vomiting means repeated again and again. He spent all his time lying on a rug. Rug means carpet. Panting. Panting means short breath. Okay. Hafte rehna in Hindi we call it. Didn't want to go for walks, didn't want to do anything. I had made my plans in advance. The only way was to get Tricky out of the house for a period. So, hearing all these things from Mrs. Pumphrey, the writer come doctor, he immediately understood how to deal with this dog. And the very first thing what he was supposed to do was to get that dog out of the house for a पीरियड. सो पहला काम जो डॉक्टर को करना था वो ये था कि किसी भी तरीके से उस डॉग को मिसेस पंफ्रे के घर से बाहर निकालें. जब तक वहां रहेगा उसकी तबीयत वैसे ही खराब रही, क्योंकि मिसेस पंफ्रे उसको खिलाती रहेंगी और ज्यादा से ज्यादा भोजन खिलाती रहेंगी, फैटी चीजें खिलाती रहेंगी, और ऐसे में ट्रिकी ठीक नहीं हो सकता. आई सजेस्टेड दैट ही बी हॉस्पिटलाइज्ड फॉर अबाउट ए फोर्टनाइट to be kept under observation. And the doctor suggested Mrs. Pumphrey that dog should be hospitalized for about a fortnight, means near about 2 weeks, to be kept under observation. So today we'll stop the explanation part here. So I hope you have understood whatever portion we have covered today. Once again, read it properly. Before that, I would provide you a few questions. Let's have a look over these questions. These are the questions. The very first question: why is Mrs. Pumphrey worried about Tricky? This is the first question. Second question: what does she do to help him? Is she wise in this? Third question: who does I refer to in this story? Fourth question: why did Tricky refuse even his favorite dishes? And the fifth question is: what was the suggestion of the doctor to Mrs. Pumphrey? What was the suggestion of the doctor to Mrs. Pumphrey? So these 5 questions are a homework to all of you, and whatever questions have been given to you, the answers have already been discussed. So once again, go through the portion that has been taught, write the answers in your copy. Thank you.
Well, children, I think whatever we have discussed today is quite clear to all of you. Once again, read the portion that has been taught and do your homework. Till we meet in the next video, take care and God bless you.